Living in a home is a fundamental aspect of human life, providing shelter, comfort, and a sense of security. However, not all houses offer the safety and stability they are expected to. Around the world, countless individuals and families reside in risky houses, structures that pose significant dangers due to their construction, location, or maintenance. Sutyagin House. The Sutyagin House was a wooden structure in Arkhangelsk, Russia. The 13-story, 144-foot tall residence of a local entrepreneur, Nikolai Petrovich Sutyagin, was reported to be the world's tallest wooden house. Constructed by Sutyagin and his family over 15 years, without formal plans or a building permit, the structure deteriorated while Sutyagin spent a few years in prison on racketeering charges. Sutyagin began building in 1992, and in the original plans, it was only going to reach 2 stories high, a normal house. Yet he was inspired by the vernacular architecture and wooden houses of Japan and Norway to keep going. First I added 3 floors, but then the house looked ungainly, like a mushroom, he told the Daily Telegraph in a 2007 interview. So I added another, and it still didn't look right, so I kept going. What you see today is a happy accident. Sadly, in 2008, the house was condemned as a fire hazard and ordered to be destroyed. Most of the town is built of wood, and the concern was that it would catch on fire, fall over, and then cause the entire town to burn. Beginning with the tower, most of the house pulled down and reduced to a pile of wooden fragments. Wazoko Apartments. Commissioned by the Het Usen Housing Association, Wazoko, built between 1994 and 1997, is a building of 100 homes for the population over 55 years. It is located in Oekmeerweg Street in Amsterdam-Osdorp, a garden city west of Amsterdam built between 1950 and 1960, now threatened by the growth of dense construction and with the elimination of green areas and common spaces outdoors. The challenge was to make a building capable of blocking the monotonous sounds of the construction done in those years on the peripheries of large cities, and also design a building that respected the quality of life and urban growth. The extravagant profile of Wazoko was born from one of the obstacles encountered during the project. The regulatory plan of Cornelis van Esteren limited the number of apartments per block to 87 units, and each tenant was promised good natural lighting. The client's request later changed to 100 units per block. It was clear that the creation 13 more units per block would have to occupy another floor, which would further limit the green common space. Yet another attitude the client wanted to fight. So the 13 additional units were suspended from the side of the main structure. China's Hanging Monastery. It is said that the Hanging Temple was built by a monk called Liao Ran during the Northern Wei dynasty. The whole temple is a wooden frame structure. It was constructed by drilling holes into the cliffside and inserting beams into the holes up to 2 to 3 meters. Then the pavilions were built out from this horizontal foundation. Now, we can see many pillars holding up the temple, but actually, the temple was constructed without the help of the wooden pillars, and they were added later for preservation and safety. The pavilions are connected by dizzying plank roads, and they are backed by steep cliffs and fronted by deep valleys. You may wonder why the Hanging Monastery was built so inaccessibly on the face of a cliff. In a word, anti-weathering, not anti-banditry, primarily, as some might think. Actually, the temple site has its own unique topographical advantages. The Hanging Temple is tucked into a natural overhang of Hungshan's Tsuaping Peak, which naturally extends outward to block rainfall. Cliff Village, China. Villagers living up a remote 800-meter clifftop in southwest China that became famous for the precarious ladders connecting it to the world have been moved to a new urban housing estate. Achelor, a 200-year-old village in Sichuan province, made headlines around the world when photographs emerged in 2016 of schoolchildren descending the cliff on unsteady rattan ladders, or sky ladders, as locals called them. The 2-hour climb was the villagers' only way to access the outside world, and they had to carry farm produce down the cliff to sell at the nearest market miles away. In recent years, local authorities replaced their handmade ladders with a steel one that featured handrails, drastically shortening their travel time. Achelor has become a tourist attraction in recent years. In 2019, 100,000 visitors generated nearly 1 million yuan, $140,878 for the village, according to Xinhua. Further development will service that industry, with officials planning to build a cable car to carry tourists up and down the cliff, Liechtenstein Castle. Having been built as early as 1130, Liechtenstein Castle has once again been under ownership of the Liechtenstein family since 1880, after being home to various castle lords for several centuries. Today, it is managed by the Stiftung Fürst Liechtenstein, Prince of Liechtenstein Foundation, and guided tours through the castle are also offered. Every year, festivals take place at the west side of the castle walls. Liechtenstein Castle was built on the orders of Hugo von Petronell as a fortification. It was part of the defensive embankment at the Thermindlini, a line of thermal springs in Lower Austria. In 1808, the castle was bought back by Johann I of Liechtenstein and entered a period of restoration. In 1903, after a lengthy process where it was restored and modernized in consideration of the original elements and rooms, construction work was provisionally completed. However, at the end of the Second World War, it was then heavily damaged and ransacked under Soviet occupation. Lake Kivu. Goma sits on the shore of Lake Kivu, a geological anomaly that holds 300 cubic kilometers of dissolved carbon dioxide and 60 cubic kilometers of methane, laced with toxic hydrogen sulfide. The picturesque lake, nestled between the DRC and Rwanda, has the potential to explosively release these gases in a rare phenomenon known as a limnic eruption that could send a huge pulse of heat-trapping gases into the atmosphere. The lake holds the equivalent of 2.6 gigatons of CO2, which is equal to about 5% of global annual greenhouse gas emissions. Even worse, such a disaster could fill the surrounding valley with suffocating and toxic gas, potentially killing millions of people. It could create one of the worst, if not the worst, natural humanitarian disasters in history. For now, the lake is stable. Although it contains a lot of gas, the concentration would have to double in the region with the most gas for it to reach saturation point. But a strong earthquake or volcanic eruption could potentially trigger a gas release by disrupting the lake's layered structure or increasing the gas concentrations. Korowai Treehouse. Can you imagine living over 100 feet up in the trees? A people known as the Korowai tribe don't need to stretch their imagination at all, because their lives have always been spent living in tree houses that soar high above. On the island of New Guinea in the southeastern part of Papua, the isolated tribe is the only group of people in the world that have established their primary residence in tree houses. It's an intriguing way to live that, to us, appears like a daredevil's lifestyle, though the reason behind the elevated homes in the jungle is actually for safety precautions. The area, which is prone to flooding and populated with buzzing insects, proves to be a life-threatening and troublesome land to live on ground level. As a result, the tribe uses labor-intensive measures to create each of their high-rise wooden homes atop trees. As if creating homes on trees and managing to survive in them wasn't enough, the tribe's diligent process is yet another factor to be in awe of. There are no cranes or load-bearing machines to assist these men and women. Everything is done by hand. Puna, Hawaii. On the eastern tip of Hawaii's Big Island, Puna is a region enveloped in mystique, marked by its vibrant tapestry of geological marvels, rich cultural heritage, and diverse ecosystems. This hidden gem, less traversed by the typical tourist, offers an intimate glimpse into the primal forces shaping our world, from its active volcanoes and geothermal vents to the lush rainforests that whisper tales of ancient Hawaii. Central to Puna's cultural narrative is Pele, the revered volcano goddess. Hawaiian legends richly embroider the tapestry of Puna's history, with volcanic activity considered a manifestation of Pele's influence. This ever-present force of nature has continuously reshaped the landscape, imbuing the region with a sense of dynamic transformation and spiritual significance. Puna is a land sculpted by the fiery heart of the earth, home to some of the most dynamic volcanic landscapes in the world. Kilauea, one of the most active volcanoes on the planet, whose eruptions have shaped the terrain with majestic lava flows and created a mesmerizing patchwork of creation and destruction. Dotting the landscape, natural geothermal vents release steam into the air, a testament to the powerful forces at work beneath the surface. Elliday Island. Elliday Island, spelled Lea in Icelandic, is an uninhabited island off the south coast of Iceland. It's part of the Vestmannaeyjar archipelago, also known as the Westman Islands. Elliday is the third largest and northeasternmost island in the Westman Islands, and it's famous for being home to the world's loneliest house. It is not possible to visit Elliday Island without the permission of the landowners. However, it is often the first island you will pass if you book a ferry to the Westman Islands. You can also see it on many tours from the Westman Islands. Hellide Island is one of the many islands and rocks that compose the Westman Islands. This volcanic archipelago, called Vestmannaeyjar in Icelandic, is geologically young. It only moved above sea level around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. Though different islands have been inhabited for periods throughout history, today, only Jaime has permanent residents. However, there are two buildings on Hellide Island. The oldest and smallest is a simple shed that was likely used as a storage building by biologists studying the island's nature. The largest building is a distinct white house standing alone in the greenery between Hellide's two tallest peaks. Built by the Hellide Hunting Association in 1953, the lodge has been photographed many times for its lonely appearance on a far-flung, otherwise untouched island. Mount Hua. Mount Huashan or Huashan is one of the famous 5 mountains in China, and more importantly, it is the original place of Chinese civilization. Reputed as a holy mountain of Chinese nation, Huashan Mountain is also praised as the root of Huaxia. Moreover, Mount Huashan is regarded as the #1 perilous mountain in China, so a lot of riskers and mountaineers have been visiting this famous site to experience its heart-stopping, dangerous plank paths on the cliffs. However, along the way to and on the 5 peaks in Mount Huashan tourist area, you could appreciate breathtaking sunrise, sunset, sea of clouds, powerful mountain scenery, a series of interesting places to invigorate your go. There are 5 main peaks in the 4 directions and the middle of the whole Mount Huashan tourist area, which are the North Peak, West Peak, South Peak, East Peak, and Middle East. Yuntai Peak is also called the North Peak for its location at the north part of the whole scenic area. Of 1,614 meters high, it is one of the main peaks of Mount Huashan. To get to the other 4 peaks, you must pass the North Peak first. The West Peak on the west part is 282.6 meters high. It is also called Lianhua Peak or Furong Peak for its giant stone like the lotus petal on the summit.